Every now and then a book comes along that changes the way you look at the world and at life. And if you're lucky enough, you find it and you read it. This is one of those books. Hi, I'm Gardner Scott. I'm lucky enough to have this in my library, and I think it's one of the best gardening books. The Hidden Life of Trees. The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben is subtitled What They Feel, How They Communicate. And it makes the case that a forest is a social network of these living beings. It's not a scientific book, though there are many footnotes, and his research is pretty amazing. It's more a story of trees. And as you read it, and especially by the time you finish it, you really will understand that trees feel and that they do communicate. Wohlleben began his professional career as a forester in Germany, and The Hidden Life of Trees was originally published in Germany and has since been translated into English. As a forester, he had a very keen understanding of trees and forests. But he began to look around and discovered a community of trees that most of us overlook. And that's why I say this book really changes the way you look at the world and the way you look at life, because by the time you read through it, you will never look at trees the same again. He looks at trees from a global perspective and brings out specific examples of forests and trees from all over the world. In Africa, the acacia tree is a favorite of giraffes. And when giraffes eat the acacia tree, that tree begins to emit toxins. And those toxins, of course, aren't very palatable to a giraffe, so the giraffe stops eating that tree. At the same time, the tree emits ethylene gas, and the trees nearby detect that gas, and they too begin to emit toxins. They haven't been touched by a giraffe yet, but their leaves are going to taste terrible, and the giraffes know that. So they'll eat the leaves until they start tasting bad, and then they know not to eat any of the nearby trees because they'll taste bad too. Does that sound like the trees are communicating to each other? He writes a story of the families of trees that exist in forests, referring to individual trees as mothers who produce offspring. And those mother trees nurture their young so that that young can grow to middle age and become a mother as well. Now, this takes a long period of time because trees grow and age very slowly. But at some point, the mother now becomes old, but she's still seeking to nurture her offspring and may even sacrifice herself so that they will become stronger and continue the family line. Wohlleben readily admits that trees don't have emotion, and they're really not acting like humans. But the way he writes and the way he describes their story is really helpful to understand and put in perspective in ways that we might appreciate how trees live, how they work together. And it's just not the mother trees that are nurturing the young. There are lots of other trees that help to nurture that same young. Think about those strong, sturdy trees on the outside of the forest, the ones that take the brunt of the winds and the weather. Those trees are acting in the best interest of all the other trees behind them. They're working together. It's a social network. The network is more than just trees. He also brings into play the fungi that is prevalent throughout the soil and how critical they are to the life of trees, including discussing some experiments that show the fungi and electrical impulses traveling through them really benefit the trees through another form of communication. He discusses the insects and how the trees affect the insects and the insects affect the trees. And even when an insect kills a tree, it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's all part of nature. And that dead tree now goes on to improve the entire environment for the fungi, for the insects, and especially for the trees. Unless you're a fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, you probably don't believe that trees move, that they travel. He discusses how trees migrate, that they don't only travel, but they can travel over great distances. Now, it's not the way you and I travel through locomotion. It's more their seeds are being dispersed, and as the conditions are right, the seeds sprout, and a new tree grows. And over a long period of time, that mother tree has now dispersed her offspring that may be living quite a distance away. I find all of these ideas fascinating, which is why I like this book. And there are many other tidbits of scientific information that are fun to read and enjoyable to understand. We know that trees and leaves get energy through photosynthesis, by absorbing the sunlight. Well, if they were so effective at absorbing all of the light, did you know that their leaves would be black? But they're not black. They're green. And he explains why leaves are green and not black. Many of us enjoy a walk through a forest. And Wohlleben explains why. He cites one study in particular of Korean scientists who monitored older women walking through the forest. And after the walk through the forest, they found that the women had lower blood pressure and higher lung capacity, and the elasticity of their arteries was improved. Trees and walking through a forest can be beneficial. Trees also produce economic gain beyond just the wood that they produce. In Japan, they found that by planting trees along the coast, they could actually improve the production of fisheries and oyster growers. It's all the interplay between the trees and the soil and the water. It extends far beyond what we think trees can do. After reading this book, you'll understand more about how trees sleep and how trees breathe, and maybe how trees play an important role in your garden or your landscape. It certainly opened my eyes, and I look at trees completely differently now. The trees I grow and even the trees that I have to cut down, they all serve a purpose. And I now act to promote that purpose, to work with nature based on what I now understand from this wonderful story. And there you have it. One of the best gardening books, The Hidden Life of Trees. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know below. If you haven't subscribed to the Gardener Scott channel, you can do so now. And if you like this video, you can give me a thumbs up and share it. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.